Right. Are you ready to dive into the papers?
And why not? Because the new patriotic party is on fire, right?
Oh, Lord.
Literally, and maybe you could say figuratively.
Figuratively, what are they
right?
saying?
So this national youth organizer has been speaking, and on the thank you tour
Which
by
website?
President of former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, the youth organizer, as reported by citynewsroom.com, has said, let's not deepen the cracks, Salam Mustapha to NPP. And it will interest you to know that yesterday on the big issue, John Darko, who is counsel to the minority and member of parliament for Suame, right, also reiterated some of these calls, towards the end of the show. It's like, see, let's work together. Let's put differences aside. He called on the executives to be as neutral and transparent as possible as the party seeks to rebuild. So it's a call that a lot of people are sharing in, a lot of NPP sympathizers, I must say. Obechebi Lamte Interchange Phase 2 suspended over delayed funds, and is the engineer speaking there. NPP's thank you tour hasn't turned chaotic. Salam Mustapha again. Black Star experience key to Ghana's branding. That's coming in from an entertainment analyst, Edem Chotome. Tokonu suspension allows constitutional process, or it follows rather constitutional process. That's coming in from your very good friend, Dr. Osai Kwapon, John Osai Kwapon, who is a political scientist and a research fellow with CDD. May 5 protest for judicial independence, not CJ. John Darko, the member of parliament for Suame. CJ requested 5 judges, was the fuss about 7. Justice Abdullahi, law lecturer, UPSA, and private legal practitioner, has been speaking. Then also A+ hasn't been removed from the majority caucus. That's coming in from the majority leader, Mahama Ayarega. Review Article 71 removal rules for comprehensive, robust process. That's coming in from Justice Abdullahi again. And also suspension of CJ is a political agenda, John Darko alleges. CJ suspension, I fully support John Mahama's decision, Justice Abdullahi again. And guess what? In Obi Manso, right? Donald Trump is at it again. He posted an AI-generated photo of himself as Pope, drawing internet outrage. But for his supporters, it's the most beautiful photo they've ever seen. You can understand why. Australian PM Albanese makes stunning comeback with landslide win. And in some rather tragic story, a British student killed in Texas days before graduation. And these are the big stories on the citynewsroom.com online portal.
Right. I'm on ChannelOneNews.com. The 1 is the digit 1. Some of the stories you'll find on that portal. Future NPP government will fire Mahama CJ. That's according to Salam Mustapha. Ken Ejapon's withdrawal won't derail thank you tour. Salam Mustapha again. CJ suspension was politicized before May 5 demo. Osai Kwapon says so. Apenyomakin rejects media report of endorsing NDC. Ghana needs robust removal process for CJ, other top officials. That's according to Justice Abdullahi. The story here, Trump posts AI-generated photo of himself as Pope, drawing internet outrage. Ghanaian student dies under suspicious circumstances at Indian University. Salam Mustapha, NPP's thank you tour, relevant. Black Star experience backed by solid research. That's according to Edem Chotome. I hope I got that right. Tamale locals in Kanvili, Paumo face isolation safety concerns amid downpours. Let's celebrate Eja Konimo while he's still alive. That's according to Mahama. If you come down to business, ECG needs competent leadership, not privatization.
And I want to take you to graphic.com.gh, right? They have some interesting stories. Okay, they also talk about Salam Mustapha's recent call. They touch on the NPP's upcoming demonstration. Not too many news stories on graphic ChannelOne.com.
Are you sure? Refresh the portal. I have some new stories
All
on
right, cool.
graphic. Some of the stories here. See the areas that will be affected by ECG's planned maintenance on May 3, 4,
That's on
and 5.
GraphicOnline.com.
Yeah. Tetakwashi Hospital gets 5.8 million Ghana cedis dialysis center to tackle kidney disease. Stop the infighting. Bawumia urges NPP members during thank you tour. NPP thank you tour moves to northern Ghana. Sami Jemfi accuses GBA of double standards over Chief Justice's suspension. Health Minister inaugurates boards of key health institutions, demands reform and accountability. In Takrade, dawn swoop leads to arrest of suspected drug dealers. President Mahama in Libreville for inauguration of new Gabon president. School feeding caterers urge President Mahama to reverse contract terminations. Education Minister inaugurates new 12-member GES Council. Unparalleled snake antivenom made from man bitten 200 times. Can you imagine that? Just to be bitten 200 times so you can be used as the anti-snake venom. Anyway, Bawumia pays tribute to late Mampong Hene, signs book of condolence. And Ghanaian student dies under suspicious circumstances at Indian University. Those are some of the stories you'll find on graphic.com.gh portal.
And I want to take you to some international headline stories before we go into the big stories we have for you. On the CNN portal, Trump officials continue to keep Laura Loomer at arm's length. Laura Loomer is a far-right political activist, and Trump officials are very skeptical of her. Also here, Van Jones, who is a Democratic political activist, has been speaking with black Trump supporters. Do you have friends in the US who are black and support Trump?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because even here in Ghana, right, all the way in Africa, despite all the commentary, you know, and some of the words Trump has used to describe, you know, black people, quite a number of people were supporting Trump, you know, even like very public-facing, well-known CSO people, right?
Yeah.
Like Trump. You know, that's interesting. Some other story: woman with a newborn faces deportation after delivery at U.S. hospital. So it looks like the ice is still, you know, icing, right, in the U.S. Some cities are canceling cultural events due to Trump's crackdown on undocumented immigrants. And still on ICE-related stories, migrants spend more than 8 hours in a tree to avoid ICE arrest. And they've done an editorial on everything that has happened with regards to Trump's immigration policy and also his first 100 days in office. So you can go on to the CNN portal to get the latest stories happening all the way in the USA.
Okay, I'm on gna.org.gh. Some of the stories. President Mahama tasks new government statistician to be bold, fiercely professional. Government is developing mathematics curriculum for blind students. That's according to the Education Minister. Winneba climaxes 2025 Aboatre Festival. Gabon returns to constitutional rule as President Nguema takes office. Professor Adementa bows out as CEO of CAF, replacement to assume office soon. Press freedom dips in many African countries, Reporters Without Borders says. Girls in ICT initiative brings hope to South Tongue. Bawumia calls for formidable front for NPP to retain political power in 2028. And President Mahama should pursue a living wage agenda, GNACWU. And yes, those are some of the stories you'll find on GNA.
It's an interesting feature on the BBC around the conclave, right? That's the selection process for the new pope. Really interesting feature. I've seen it.
Starts next week, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, this week, Tuesday.
You know, and it's
Sunday.
interesting. Probably my mind, but, you know, I'll be scrolling on social media and then all of a sudden I'll see a post as to why Cardinal ABC is the greatest thing to ever happen to the Catholic Church, you know, and it's unbelievable.
Everybody's rooting for
Quite
their
recently,
own.
I saw one on some Nigerian cardinal, I think it goes by the name Arinze. He's 92
Cardinal
years.
Arinze, he's 92 years.
You know, and all of a sudden he's like, you know, the framing was like, even if he's not nominated Pope, he's like the greatest, you know, to ever come from Nigeria with regards to the Catholic Church.
Everybody's backing their own.
You know, and I'm seeing some cardinal texting stories here and there, you know. I mean, the best person, you know, emerged leader for the Universal Church or the Holy Catholic Church, as you guys call it. Can we delve into some of the stories now?
Yes.
I want to start off with
NPP.
NPP related stories. John Darko has been in the news. His Minority Caucus Council and also Member of Parliament for Suame.
On their thank you tour?
Yes, and he's been speaking, not necessarily on the thank you tour first.
But a number of issues.
Yeah, particularly on the CJ removal process, the suspension, and the appointment of 7 new judges by President John Mahama. So, Member of Parliament for Suame, John Darko, has clarified that the new Patriotic Party's planned protest on Monday, May 5, is not a show in defense for suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo, but rather a demonstration against what the party views as a dangerous attack on judicial independence under the current administration. Speaking on ChannelOne TV's political talk show, The Big Issue, on Saturday, May 3, Mr. Darko stated emphatically that the demonstration was aimed at defending the sanctity of the judiciary and not the individual involved. And this is quote, he says, "For me, what the NPP is doing on Monday, May 5, is a protest against the destruction of the independence of the judiciary, and it's not in defense of Torkornoo," he said. His comments come in the lead up to the NPP's joint demonstration with 4 other political parties, all of whom have condemned the suspension of the Chief Justice as unconstitutional and a threat to the balance of power in the country's structure. President John Mahama on Tuesday, April 22nd, suspended the Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo after the prima facie case was established based on separate petitions calling for her removal. And the story goes on and on and on and on. So May 5, you know, you know,
Journalist Burberry.
yeah, May 5 is the day. And, you know, this is on the back of a previous demonstration the week prior with regards to Galamsey activities, right, where a group calling itself something generations, you know, led by a well-known media personality, not necessarily a journalist, and some other people who were calling for government to act in the fight against Galamsey. People saw it as political, right?
Yeah.
But this is political because 4 political parties are coming together to do this. Of course, it's being led by the NPP. I've heard Nana be on it, and you know they sort of have been able to rally the base, right, to make this a thing, right? So it's interesting how it's playing out. And from the Minority Caucus Council, John Darko, it's not in defense of Madam Gertrude Torkornoo or CJ or suspended CJ Gertrude Torkornoo, but rather it's to protect judicial independence. Yesterday was an interesting show on The Big Issue.
I listened, I watched.
It was interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and then later in the evening when Salam Mustapha came and he uttered those words that any future NPP government will fire Mahama CJ, I was like, oh my God, this is the precedent we were hoping no one would want to set.
Yeah, you know, and it's so unfortunate because when you listen to NDC communicators, right, they're also quick to point the Charlotte Osei removal, right?
Yeah,
even
as
though,
an example.
Of course, Charlotte Osei wasn't a CJ, right? Their scope of work are completely different. But they make the argument that, oh, she has the powers or she's on the level of an appeals court judge, right? So, yeah, you know, and for me, I struggle to see the equalization they make there, right? And the most important thing is that, like the GBA statement they put out, the very first one they put out, not the second one, the first GBA statement, it should be transparent, right? It should be conducted with the nation's interest at heart, right? And the people on the committee, they have a really tough task. And finally on this, right, I wanted to say that if you go back to, was it the May Day, it was organized labor or the
Yeah.
TUC, in one of their groups, in their speech, right? They said that, bearing in mind the very importance of this process, right? It's important that this administration, go about this process, they hasten slowly, right, and ensure that the best interest of the country is put forward, right? Other than that, the repercussions and the kind of, the kind of worms, not necessarily
The precedents.
yeah, it will set a very bad precedent, right? And also the Constitutional Review Committee, the CRC.
Yeah.
I hope they are following this keenly. I've seen certain comments by members of the committee and some other persons who've been called on by the committee. Very influential persons in our body politics and in our governance structure, right? It's important that they follow the process very keenly, and in their recommendations in the future, show how we can, entrench or protect some of these things so that it doesn't look like it is a very simple or easy process to remove, right? If you go through a process of removing a Speaker of Parliament, right, and you compare it to that of a Chief Justice, you see that it's almost as though, in the eyes of some people, that it's more difficult to remove a Speaker of Parliament than it is for a Chief Justice. And I actually think so, right? So the CRC have some work to do, and hopefully they are able to put everything together in a manner that, brings out the best possible way about handling some of these cases in the future, so that we don't give the executive too much power to be able to also, change things as and when, based on the desires or the mood of the president, whoever it may be someday.
I wanted to read a bit of what John Osai Kwapon said. He said CJ suspension was politicized before May 5 demo. A bit of that story reads, Dr. John Osai Kwapon, a research fellow at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, says the suspension of Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu had already taken a political turn well before the planned May 5 protest by the New Patriotic Party and its allies. His comments come as public and political tension continues to mount over the Chief Justice's suspension, with several opposition parties and civil society groups set to demonstrate on Monday. Speaking on ChannelOne TV's The Big Issue on Saturday, May 3, Dr. Osai Kwapon argued that the political framing of the controversy predates the street protest. The CDD fellow pointed to online discourse and partisan rhetoric as clear evidence that the issue had been entrenched in political narratives even before the announcement of any public action. The demo on Monday, or May 5th for me, is not what begins to politicize this CJ suspension. This has been already politicized by the partisans if you look at the comments on social media and other conversations, he stated.
He's such a level-headed,
very level-headed,
very well-spoken, deep intellect, right? So, and he balanced the conversation on The Big Issue yesterday.
Yes.
Because, Prof. Sharif was taking it on one end, talking about the balancing act with regards to the judiciary.
Yeah.
John Darko was on another wavelength. A lawyer, Andrew Appiah Dankwa from the Movement of Change, also taking it. But he was like the
balance of the scales.
Exactly.
Yeah, I realized that.
It was interesting.
I realized
I know A+ is in the news. And later today on ChannelOne TV, he will be speaking to Freeman and Atufo in a very interesting conversation. But just talking about him, the majority leader issued a statement yesterday saying that A+ hasn't been removed from the majority caucus and the majority WhatsApp page, right? Contrary to what a lot of people have been saying on social media, particularly MDC foot soldiers who were disgruntled with his public commentary on the Attorney General, using all sorts of words on him. He's come out to deny some, but some of them we saw him post on the social media. So the majority leader in Parliament, Mama Yarega, has dismissed media reports suggesting Kwame Asare, being popularly known as A+, has been removed from the majority caucus WhatsApp platform following a reported fallout with the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine. In a statement issued on May 3, 2025, Ayariga described the report originally published by Ghana Web as entirely false and misleading. Clarifying the matter, the majority leader affirmed that A+, who is a member of parliament for Gomoa Central, remains an active member of the majority caucus and is still part of its official communication platform. So, this is the big story. I think that, see, with all that's happened with regards to A+ and the Attorney General, right, it's time for like a proper election campaign financing policy, right? The EC is supposed to be doing that. Monitor how political parties are funding their campaign, but clearly they are not up to the task, right? So maybe the OSP or some other investigative body should step in, right? And for me, for a member of parliament,
the OSP anyway.
Yeah, he said he's
to do that.
He said he's overstretched, right? But I think that he has the investigative powers and the backing of the system and the state to be able to look into this. If we resource the office wall, he can do it. My point is that it was very unfortunate for a member of parliament who is part of the majority caucus and an attorney general, right? That whole public, it was very unfortunate. Right, and for me, it should be investigated. Right, the accusations, the counter accusations. It doesn't.
But have you seen A+'s statement? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, he said he didn't describe him in certain words.
He said it's an account which is impersonating him.
That said, he was scrubbed. But we saw his official account post and later delete. Calling him all sorts of names. Right. So for me, it's unfortunate. I hope the majority caucus are able to, sit down and deal with it. But beyond that, I think the Ghanaian, the ordinary Ghanaian deserves some level of transparency, right? What is it that would lead a member of parliament to make such, bold accusations against no other person than the Attorney General, the custodian, the principal legal officer for the state? That's a serious, right? So I think we shouldn't let this slide.
You can catch that interview on
A+'s interview.
Yes, A+'s interview, Upside Down Show at 7 p.m. today on ChannelOne TV. Yeah, those are all the stories that we can touch on.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess that's our newspaper review segment or news portal review segment. For more stories, you can go on any of the portals, ChannelOneNews.com or CityNewsroom.com, and read some more. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.